just like we like to see, sanctions against Donald Trump and parking lot lawyer extraordinaire Alina Habba. Now, we're going to take a little bit of a trip down memory lane, but trust me, it's worth it, because the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals has just affirmed a federal district court judge's ruling that sanctioned Alina Habba as well as Donald Trump to the tune of $1 million in attorneys' fees and costs that they have to pay. You gotta love it. So let's pull up this order. It's worth it. November 26, 2025, 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, as I noted, in its several appeals that had been taken by Donald Trump and Alina Habba. It was before a 3-judge panel led by Chief Judge William Pryor, Judges Brasher and Kidd, and we'll get into who they are in a second. But it's a 36-page order that you're seeing in front of you, and it was consolidated appeals, which means that there were 4 different appeals taken from the district court judge, Judge Middlebrooks' multiple rulings, and they were consolidated, meaning they were put together for purposes of the 11th Circuit to hear them on an appeal. And what did the district court judge do? Well, Judge Middlebrooks dismissed Donald Trump's lawsuit that he brought against several defendants, and we'll get into who they are in a second. Judge Middlebrooks dismissed Trump's amended complaint with prejudice, and as all of you have learned here, when something is dismissed with prejudice, it cannot be revived, it cannot be brought back unless an appeals court tells you otherwise. For failure to state a claim, meaning that Donald Trump amended his lawsuit against these defendants and could not get his shit together, courtesy of Alina Habba and other lawyers in Florida, to be able to get across the finish line of even just the basic allegations in the complaint. The defendants moved to dismiss, and the defendants moved for sanctions. Judge Middlebrooks entered sanctions against Trump and his lawyers under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 11 and under the court's inherent authority to sanction litigants and lawyers. While those orders from Judge Middlebrooks were up on appeal, Trump and his lawyers moved the same judge, Judge Middlebrooks, to reconsider each of the orders that he had entered in light of special counsel John Durham's report that had been issued. Those defendants also moved to disqualify Judge Middlebrooks. The judge denied both of those motions, the special counsel John Durham one and the motion to disqualify. 2 of the defendants asked this appeals court to also sanction Trump for bringing a frivolous appeal on those 5 orders. This is what the 11th Circuit says, quote, because Trump and his attorneys committed sanctionable conduct and forfeited their procedural objections, we affirm both sanctions orders. Wow. Okay. So here's the background. Trump alleged in an amended complaint that in the lead up to the 2016 presidential election, Hillary Rodham Clinton, who he sued in this lawsuit, and this is in a federal court in Florida, Hillary Rodham Clinton, the presumptive presidential nominee for the Democratic Party, conspired with others to weave a false narrative about him. Clinton and her allies sought to discredit, delegitimize, and defame Trump by fabricating a story that he and his campaign colluded with Russia. Now that's what Trump alleges. We all know what the truth is. But so some of the defendants in this lawsuit were Hillary Rodham Clinton, the law firm Perkins Coie, Mark Elias, our good friend who was a partner at the time at Perkins Coie, Fusion GPS, Orbis Limited, a private intelligence firm run by a guy by the name of Christopher Steele, Igor Dachenko, a Russian analyst, Charles Dolan, a political operative with ties to the Clinton campaign, Perkins Coie partner Michael Sussman. I mean, there's all these people, right? And so Trump pretty much sued a whole lot of damn people. Anyway, what ends up happening is this. Trump, of course, as we know, alleges that this conspiracy is still ongoing, as we have seen him allege, and as you've seen him try to task the DOJ to be able to do something about it. Trump alleges that he suffered at least $24 million in defense costs and legal fees because of the conspirators' actions, in addition to loss of business opportunities. So that was the crux of the lawsuit that he brought here in Florida in federal court. He alleged 16 claims in his amended complaint. So there were 28 named defendants that were identified in Trump's lawsuit, as of March 24th of 2022. Trump's initial complaint was 108 pages long, had 508 numbered paragraphs. There were two law firms that were representing Trump, Alina Habba's law firm and this law firm in Florida called the Ticktin Law Group. The guy that the law firm is named after, Peter Ticktin, he's like asshole buddies with Donald Trump. Judge Donald Middlebrooks was assigned this case in federal court. After he was assigned, and remember, it's a random lottery assignment in federal court, as it is in state court, Trump moved to disqualify Judge Middlebrooks on the following grounds. And you're going to love this because what's good for the goose is good for the gander is what I think with somebody like Trump. But listen to this. Trump argued that the reason why Judge Middlebrooks must be removed from his lawsuit was because Middlebrooks had a, quote, relationship to the defendant Hillary Clinton because President William Clinton, Bill Clinton, had nominated Judge Middlebrooks to his position. Okay, if that's your rationale, then any Trump-nominated judge should never preside on a Trump-related case, which would also suggest that people sitting on the fucking Supreme Court shouldn't be listening to stuff that deal with Trump. Judge Middlebrooks appropriately, legally, and smartly denied the motion to disqualify. Warnings were provided by some of the defendants to Habba and Trump, basically saying, you are filing things in bad faith, you are being frivolous, your facts are dead ass wrong, please fix it, please remove us. In the end, Trump, Habba, et al. Refused to do it. So there was an initial round of motions to dismiss by the defendants. Trump filed an amended complaint to try to cure the defects that had existed. He didn't take away, right? He added over 80 pages of allegations and then he tacked on 3 more defendants. So Habba, being the dumbass that she is, doesn't try to fix the problems that happened before. She just makes them worse. How? By adding 80 more pages of allegations and adding 3 more defendants. So now we got 31 freaking defendants, right? The 4 attorneys that are on this amended complaint, Alina Habba and Michael Madeo from the law firm of Habba Madeo, and Peter Ticktin and Jamie Allen Sasson, S-A-S-S-O-N, from the Ticktin Law Group. Think of them when you think of quality lawyers. Judge Middlebrooks dismisses the amended complaint, saying not only was that lawsuit, quote, foreclosed by existing precedent, and implausible because it lacked any specific allegations which might provide factual support for the conclusions reached, he also found that Trump's amended complaint misrepresented its sources. It also was what we call in the law a shotgun pleading, meaning not only was it excessive in length, but it also tried to shoehorn preceding paragraphs of allegations into counts as well as those preceding counts into subsequent counts. And so it pretty much made it almost impossible to discern what were the allegations that were relating to specific counts, to specific defendants, etc. On the merits, Judge Middlebrooks found that Trump's claims failed as a matter of law. And the judge said, you know what? I'm not even going to let you try to amend again because not only is it going to be futile, but it just doesn't make sense to waste any more time. That's how bad you are, Trump and Habba and Ticktin and all you other lawyers. So the court reserved jurisdiction to adjudicate issues that were pertaining to sanctions. So after Judge Middlebrooks dismisses the amended complaint, one of the defendants who had basically served Rule 11 sanctions warning said, pursuant to Rule 11 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, I'm now seeking sanctions against you. That particular defendant, Dolan, asked that Trump's attorneys pay a $50,000 penalty or fine plus $16,274.23 in fees because of their willful conduct. Okay, that's it. Following Dolan's motion for sanctions, many of the other defendants jointly moved for sanctions against Trump and his lawyers. Judge Middlebrooks granted those motions for sanctions, describing not only the shotgun pleadings that you and I just talked about, but that there were knowingly false factual allegations made, frivolous legal theories asserted, as evidence of the bad faith of Trump and the lawyers. Judge Middlebrooks also mentioned that Trump had a history and a pattern of filing frivolous lawsuits, and that pattern of misusing the courts was also a basis for sanctions in this case. Judge Middlebrooks calculated that the fees and costs that were owed to multiple defendants totaled $1 million. $1 million. Judge Middlebrooks allowed Trump to be able to raise objections to the fees and the costs that were asserted by the defense attorneys in this case. And in the end, the total ended up being $937,989.39. Judge Middlebrooks found Donald Trump and Alina Habba, along with Habba's law firm, jointly and severally liable for that almost $1 million. So let's take a second and talk about what joint and several liability is. This is what it means. It means that the judge said, this almost $1 million, you are all collectively responsible for it. I don't give a shit who ponies up the money and how you want to divvy it up amongst the three of you, because remember, it was Trump, Habba, and Habba's law firm. But the money has to be paid. Again, don't care how y'all do it, but y'all are jointly and severally liable. So it's not like Habba could say, Trump, this is all your fault. You got to do it. It's not like Trump could say, Habba, you suck, which we all know, or your law firm sucks. You guys have to do it. Judge says, I don't give a shit. The money has to be paid. Keep that in mind, right? Alrighty. So I'm going to fast forward and basically say the following. The appeals court considered all of the arguments that were raised by Trump and the other Trump and Habba, and basically says, look, we don't think that Judge Middlebrooks abused his discretion when he entered sanctions against Trump and Habba. And basically, not only was it based upon the court's inherent authority to be able to do that, but also the Rule 11 sanctions that were raised also justified the sanctions in this case. We also don't find that Judge Middlebrooks erred as a matter of law, committed any error when he found as a matter of law that Trump's racketeering claims that he raised in his lawsuit, that they did not actually make it across the finish line. One of the most scathing things that this appeals court found was that Alina Habba / Trump, her client, failed to preserve arguments on appeal. So what happens is this: when you are on a lower court level and you fail to object in a way or raise grounds for objections to things that are happening, they are considered to not be a part of the appeal because you had the obligation to do them. And the appeals court in this opinion makes it very clear that Trump and Habba abandoned arguments by not raising them in the district court despite having the opportunity to do so. Quote, we do not consider issues not presented in the first instance to the trial court. And so Trump and Habba tried to raise all the stuff on the appeals level with the 11th Circuit. And the 11th Circuit is like, you snooze, you lose. You don't raise that shit at the trial court. Don't come running to us to be able to fix that problem. And what is that a clear reflection of? It's a reflection of how shitty a lawyer Alina Habba is, that she did not know that she must preserve these issues for purposes of appeal. And in the end, the appeals court said, look, I'm also finding, or these three judges said, look, we're also finding that Judge Middlebrooks was allowed to bolster his finding of bad faith by pointing to Trump's litigation conduct in other cases. That pattern of misusing the courts was certainly relevant to the court's argument here. Finally, the appeals court says, look, that $1 million, that's actually an appropriate amount of money, and we don't take any issue with Judge Middlebrooks' calculation of it. I mean, look, sometimes the good guys win in this case. And Trump has taken this appeal, and an 11th Circuit panel of judges has said, you know what? We're going to sustain what Judge Middlebrooks found, more or less, like 99% of what Judge Middlebrooks found and did. The stuff with which the appeals court disagreed with Judge Middlebrooks was so minor, it actually didn't even rise to the level of anything worth noting in this episode. And remember how I told you that I was going to mention a little bit about these three judges that are on the 11th Circuit, these justices? Well, look, the chief judge, Judge Pryor, that's a George W. Bush appointee. That's a Republican there for you. Now, Judge Kidd is a Biden appointee, but get this, Judge Brasher, Trump appointee. So Trump argues that Judge Middlebrooks has to be disqualified because Bill Clinton nominated Judge Middlebrooks. Isn't that interesting? Wouldn't that be an interesting argument for people to be making? I mean, look, when you have all three of these 11th Circuit judges finding that there's no error that was committed here and that everything was appropriate in terms of sanctions, I mean, it's the right thing. It's not only the right ruling, but it's the right thing to find. So celebrate the wins. As I've said to you here, I think it's a great win. $1 million freaking dollars in sanctions for fees and costs that Trump and Alina Habba have to deal with together. Isn't it lovely?
Katie Phang here. We launched the Katie Phang News Channel in partnership with the Midas Touch Network so we could bring you the latest in legal and political news. Straight, no chaser. So if you're a fellow truth teller, hit that subscribe button and share the word about this channel so we can build a high information America together.